Before we get started, please go over to Amazon.com and grab a copy of my book, Education and Justice. If you have an African-American son in public school, you need this book because I teach you the many ways that public schools mistreat African-American boys and what you can do to help your son. So go over there and get your copy immediately. Okay, folks, so democracy got a huge victory last week. A huge victory. 2 courageous federal judges gave democracy, in other words, our country, a huge victory. And here's why it was so huge. And here's what it regards. So back in March, Trump released an executive order that would have made a tremendous negative impact on voting. Tremendous. There are 7 or so provisions in this executive order that would have just simply changed voting in this country. And obviously, it would have tilted everything toward the GOP. And basically what this is an effort to rig the 2026 midterm elections. But these 2 federal judges, courageous federal judges, stepped in and gave democracy a huge victory. U.S. District Judge Colleen Kohler Cotelli, and the other one, District Judge, U.S. District Judge Denise Casper. We owe both of them a serious debt of gratitude. Because again, this executive order that Trump released was just simply awful. Now, let me tell you some of the things that he tried to get done through this executive order and what we have in place now and what he was trying to get changed. So regarding mail-in ballots, many states accept mail-in ballots so long as they are postmarked by Election Day. Well, Trump, in his executive order, he wanted all mail-in ballots rejected if they were not received by Election Day. And that would have impacted millions of voters, especially military voters. All right? But that was the change he wanted to make regarding mail-in ballots. Judge Denise Casper blocked that. She issued a preliminary injunction. Then Trump, and this is really horrible here, he wanted proof of citizenship to register. Now, where have you heard this before? Well, you heard it in my SAVE Act video, because Congress is trying to do the very, very same thing. And it has already passed the House. It's with the Senate. And fortunately, the GOP does not have enough to overcome a filibuster. So it is stuck right now in the Senate. So Trump is trying to get much of the same things done through this executive order, but for these courageous district judges. All right, proof of citizenship. Currently, federal law does not require documentary proof of citizenship for registration. But had Trump executive orders, come into fruition, had not been halted by these preliminary injunctions, then folks would have had to prove citizenship with the passport, with real ID, or military ID to register to vote. I mean, I can remember when registering to vote was extremely easy. And some of you would say, yeah, but we need these kinds of protections to protect voter integrity. You know why that's a farce? Because voter fraud is extremely rare. Very rare. It typically doesn't happen. And what they're trying to essentially say, what the GOP, MAGA, Trump are saying is The folks who are undocumented in the country, those are the ones who tend to do the voter fraud thing. Well, I think, again, the data shows that's not true. But if you just use some common sense, you see how foolish that is, because these people who are fearful of being deported will not show up, most likely, at a voter poll wanting to vote and risk the chance of getting deported. So this proof of citizenship is targeted basically to keep folks from voting, especially African-American people, women who have gotten divorced and they have the same last name as their former husband. In other words, they've not changed their names yet, and then if they change their names and other documents still have their married name instead of their maiden name, then that's going to cause confusion. So this can keep just enough voters from voting to tilt elections toward the GOP. The GOP does not want a lot of people voting in the first place. They're on the record with that. Okay? So this proof of citizenship is nefarious. All right? It's not for voter integrity, election integrity. Voter roll purging. Currently, states maintain their own rolls, aggressive purges discouraged by DOJ if discriminatory. But in Trump's executive order, it mandates that DHS and DOJ have access to state rolls. It mandates that they have that they allow subpoenas and can have direct purging. So he wants DHS under Kristi Noem and DOJ under Pam Bundy to be able to have access to vote to states' voter rolls and to subpoena those rolls. It's these are just crazy changes, and they wouldn't happen, I tell you that, if SCOTUS had not gutted the Voting Rights Act, because these kinds of changes would not be able to take place but for pre-clearance. There would have to be some pre-clearance there. All right? What else here? I won't go through all of it. All right, access to voting via federal agencies. So under Biden's Executive Order 14019, directed agencies to help expand voter registration access. So some federal agencies could help folks vote, which is a good thing, right? Well, Trump's executive order would have eliminated Biden's executive order, and it would have banned agencies from helping with voter registration. Judge Denise Casper stopped that. State autonomy in elections. Another provision. States administer elections and determine their methods within constitutional limits. But Trump's executive order would have overridden state rules with federal mandates on registration and counting deadlines. You see, this is a violation of the 10th Amendment. I mean, states have autonomy. They are sovereigns. So they determine their voting laws so long as they are constitutional. Well, Trump wanted the federal government to take that over. Okay? All right. Federal funding conditions. Currently, federal funding typically based on compliance with basic security and accessibility standards. Well, under Trump's executive order cuts funding to states that don't enforce his executive order regarding registration and voting restriction. All right, bans on counting postmarked ballots after Election Day. Currently, many states allow postmarked ballots received after Election Day to be counted. Trump's executive order gets rid of that. All right, another provision, screening citizenship at public assistance agencies. Federal law currently requires agencies to offer voter registration without vetting the citizenship, without vetting their citizenship. Well, again, Trump's executive order would have required agencies to check citizenship before offering registration forms. Now, you, again, are probably saying, what is wrong with ensuring that a person is a citizen before they vote? Because it keeps a whole lot of people from voting when there is very, very, very few voter fraud cases having to do with undocumented people. Judge Casper, she blocked that. Proof of citizenship even for military and overseas voter. Currently, military and overseas voters use the federal postcard application with limited barriers. Well, Trump's executive order adds documentary citizenship proof requirement to military and overseas ballots. I mean, the military. Well, Judge Casper blocked that. Ban on correcting minor ballot errors. States can correct currently minor errors, such as missing a signature, to preserve valid ballots. Well, Trump's executive order prevents voters from correcting minor mistakes on ballots that are submitted on time. Fortunately, Judge Casper blocked that as well. All of those restrictions and changes to voting laws are intended to rig elections for GOP. You know, GOP voters tend to be very committed to voting, so they know that most likely they're going to get their base out. But the Democratic voters, you know, they tend not to be as committed. And so just upsetting the status quo just a little would, in many cases, be enough to shift or tilt elections toward the GOP, and they know that. So we dodged that bullet, again, because of two courageous federal judges, and I thank them so much. Now, the SAVE Act. I told you I'd come back to that. A lot of this is captured in the SAVE Act. Now, what we need to do, as I told you in my previous video, is we need to be in touch with our senators. We need to be in touch with our senators. Currently, as I stated earlier, the Democrats have enough votes to filibuster this particular act, this bill, the SAVE Act. In other words, the GOP don't have the 60 required Senate votes to overcome the Democrats' filibuster. So they can't get it through Congress unless they get rid of the filibuster rule or they amend it so that they can get this bill passed with only a majority. And they are not averse to doing that. We know them. We know that they will do whatever they need to do or whatever Trump tells them to do to get their agenda through. So, again, get on the phone, make the phones ring so that the Senate will not approve of the SAVE Act. It is a horrible bill. And again, it would rig elections. Some of the same things that we just talked about are part of the SAVE Act. All right, so get on your phone, make that call. All right, so I wanted to bring you that. We dodged a bullet for now. This is a preliminary injunction, which means that this executive order is on ice for now. No pun intended. A federal appeals court will, in fact, there could be two federal appeals court because Judge Casper, she's in Massachusetts, and Judge Cotelli is in D.C., so there could be an appeals court in the Massachusetts area and the D.C. area that would determine if these judges were right in their rulings. Okay? So they could overturn it. The appeals courts could overturn it and let Trump's executive order go through. All right? Until then, it's on ice. It's on ice until then. And I believe that both of those appeals courts actually would uphold what these judges did, and then these cases would be on their way to SCOTUS, where things are a whole lot more favorable to Trump, which says what? Ultimately, we need to really be focused on the 2026 midterms so that we can hopefully take one, if not both, chambers of Congress. And then we can absolutely stop much of this Project 2025 agenda. All right, thank you for watching this video. I am Reverend and Civil Rights Attorney Augustus Corbett. Remember, stay woke.